Pikmin 2 fucking sucks. I am tired of people pretending this is like some standout GameCube game, some standout game from 2004, one of the best Pikmin games ever released, one of the best games Nintendo has ever made. Like, Pikmin 2 is the absolute worst, and it is like appalling how this game has garnered an audience over the years. And I imagine it's mostly just because of the fact that it's longer than the original Pikmin. And, we didn't get a new Pikmin 3 until like 8 years later? 7, 8 years later. So there was like a long gap between releases, right, with this IP, right? This big new Nintendo IP, we got Pikmin 2, and then we didn't get anything out after that for a long time. So this game, much like crap like Star Fox Assault and F-Zero GX, got like a really big cult following, right? A lot of people will tell you Pikmin 2 is amazing, one of their favorite games ever, and it's just terrible. Okay, I've played like the original Pikmin like 6 times since it was really released on Switch, right? I love that game, right? I'm nearing the end of my 6th playthrough. Like, I'm probably going to do another 7th one before Pikmin 4 comes out. Like, I love Pikmin 1 and 3, right? They are such fun, unique, interesting games. Pikmin 2 strips away everything good, enjoyable, and fun about Pikmin. It turns this RTS game into basically a generic dungeon crawler, where you have to divide your Pikmin up into units and take them down into these caves and have them fight enemies. And you can't, get more of them. You can't, you're basically just going through these caves, right? Fighting, random monsters, going through random obstacles, preserving as many Pikmin as you can until you get to the very end, and then you go back to the overworld, and the cycle just kind of repeats itself, right? The caves aren't interesting. They're not fun. They're not engaging to navigate. It's just so absurd how repetitive and boring the game actually is. Like, when you compare it to Pikmin 1, which constantly throws new interesting things at you, sometimes on different playthroughs because of how the enemies move around and how there are some unique enemies that you can only trigger in unique certain circumstances, or just simply going about things a different way, right? It is remarkable how different subsequent playthroughs of Pikmin 1 can be, right? The big one that everyone knows is going from your first playthrough where you don't know what you're doing to your second, where you do know what you're doing, right? And then from there, you just keep lowering your times and keep getting better at the game. It just never stops being fun. Pikmin 2, is more difficult and it has more going on. With mechanics, it has better AI, it has more enemy variety, it has more locations, it has all this stuff, all this superficial elements to it, but it doesn't mesh together at all. It just feels kind of bloated and just doesn't feel very well paced. When you go play Pikmin 2 and you go down a cave and then you come back and then you go down another cave, what exactly is the point of the day cycle? Right? Time slows down when you're in caves. So the entire core premise of Pikmin is that you're only supposed to work through the day and then come back at night. It just doesn't work in Pikmin 2. It doesn't serve a purpose. It really feels like Pikmin 2, more than any other Nintendo game I've ever played, it really does feel as if the executives really cracked down on what Miyamoto could do here. I think this was in the later days of Yamauchi, or maybe in the early days of Iwata, right? Who the higher ups at Nintendo told Miyamoto Pikmin 1 was too esoteric. You need to make it more palatable to mainstream audiences. And they came up with this, right? A game that really fundamentally appeals to no one. If people tell me they love Pikmin 2, I assume they don't play video games, because this game is just a complete mess from start to finish. Now, are there things to like about the game? Absolutely. Like I said, there is better AI. There are more Pikmin types. There's some interesting boss encounters. I would say the combat in general in this game is much improved over the original, but whatever superficial improvements there are over Pikmin 1, they don't really culminate in a better experience, right? It's kind of how let's see. what's a good example? It's kind of like how Twilight Princess is like an advancement over what Ocarina of Time did, right? You know, it has like more refined visuals, has more content, has bigger worlds, it has like, you know, more expansive dungeons, it has like more combat opportunities. That doesn't necessarily make it a better game though, right? And like, you know, plenty of people like Twilight Princess, and that's fine. But like to say that like Twilight Princess is better than the iconic Ocarina, A Link to the Past, the original Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, you know, Tears of the Kingdom, like that is downright laughable, right? Like, I don't think there's any disputing that, like, Pikmin 2 is the worst Pikmin game. Worse even than, like, Hey Pikmin, which does have a lot of redeeming qualities to it. Like, I really enjoyed Hey Pikmin. I have never, ever enjoyed Pikmin 2.